Here we are once again. Welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. We have been reflecting on the dialectic, the art of understanding that Socrates is demonstrating in the dialogue that we are reading. The author is demonstrating it in how the book is written. We have been demonstrating it in how we have read the book, looking for the kinds of questions, bringing the ideas together into answers, also bringing the ideas together in order to define those key ideas. Our dreams are also demonstrating a masterful art of the dialectic, so we have been discovering, giving us an opportunity to practice our dialectic reading, because every dream is a kind of text personally directed to you that you can practice your dialectic on, but also gain this specific information you need to gain about your problem and about how you are doing in your movement towards your highest purpose. Welcome, Crash. Welcome.
I have a sickness for the thickness.
We have a sickness for the thickness here, so you're in the right place.
Honestly, on the real, I say stuff like that because I'm cool.
And we are cool here. Welcome. So, everywhere is the dialectic. It's how we structure our own thought. Not only that, we've been structuring our conversations with our chatters recently according to that dialectical structure. The question that we were exploring last time is, what makes something true? We had a chatter, came in with an idea, a very good idea in their minds, a very beneficial idea in their minds. How can they make sure they haven't been tricked? How can they verify that idea is true? Next, how can they communicate that idea to others so others may benefit from it? Dialectic, buddy. It's the dialectic. Our standard for determining truth. Reasoned reflection through words, it's called. Also, that's the definition part of the dialectic. The demonstration is you actually testing it out and verifying it for yourself in direct experience. And that even includes spiritual experiences. The dialectic allows us to also understand the kinds of spiritual experiences, because the nature of reality and mind unfolds through the same dialectical structure. It's dialectics all the way down. To reference that thing about turtles all the way down. It's turtles all the way down, it's dialectics all the way down and up. With dialectic comes understanding from our chat. Well said.
I have a sickness for the thickness.
Once again, we have a sickness for the thickness.
I'm cute, like a cutie pie.
Thank you, Emma. So, we've also been discovering that same dialectical structure we can use to recognize the different kinds of interpretations we have to new truth. When someone does share a new truth with you, it will rub up against the old beliefs you carry. If you've ever tried talking to someone else who is very fervently attached to their beliefs, more so if they identify with that belief, they call themselves a Christian, a Jew, a Trumper, a Nazi, whatever it happens to be. It can be difficult to share new understanding, even though it's true, even though it's beneficial, even though it's their literal purpose for having been born to learn about this truth you might be sharing with them, about the nature of self, about the nature of reality, and about our purpose. Notice 1, 2, 3, self, reality, understanding. Even though you might be doing your best to share that with them, you may have found they react negatively. Sometimes they might want to beat you up. That's how vicious and negative the human response is to truth that challenges their dearly held false beliefs. Harmful false beliefs. That's the savage nature of humanity. Our purpose is to move from savages to sages. That's through the art of the dialectic. Now we can use the dialectic to understand the different kinds of interpretation people have. In fact, that has been one of the things Socrates has asked us to do in this text. In this text, we've been collecting a whole bunch of examples or demonstrations of people who've responded to a new truth in different ways. Socrates has given us a bit of a head start and said, hey, by the way, just as the 5 hypotheses that outline the movement through understanding to, let's draw on the board, to different levels of understanding that we can hierarchically arrange as a ladder to map our soul's development. And that has 5 basic terms: the ultimate or the ideal, and 4 diminished versions, allowing you to understand the nature of wisdom, the first 2, and the nature of ignorance, the second 2, and the ideal, the one that sits atop. You can even expand it out because there are even positions or ways of understanding reality, self, that are defined in opposition. For example, someone in the 5th hypothesis is someone in the physical world and says, well, while there may be a mind and there may be a self, and we may even personify the self as the highest idea of God or the divine. So isn't that interesting? As Parmenides' teacher, this comes from Parmenides, by the way. Parmenides was Socrates' teacher. Parmenides' teacher was Xenophanes. And we only have a small bit of writing from Xenophanes, but he said it's the whole that is seeing, hearing, and thinking. And one way of understanding that, it's the whole of God. So the very thing that's watching this, wondering about this, that's the self, or the highest idea of God. Isn't that interesting? That our final goal is the most profound is also the most immediate, the most personal. Isn't that interesting? So while there may be a God, and there may be the gods that you can experience as mind as a whole, turning about upon itself, which is ousia. So the second hypothesis, we have no connection with it. Ironic, ain't it? Yes, it is. And that's a fun thing to wonder about, because some people who have had, it's not an experience, but a recognition or a realization of the nature of the self and God, often talk about its relationship to humor. Like maybe and we can think about what that might be like. That's the game. We understand and then we imagine. That's understanding, third hypothesis, and imagination or states of mind. Those are the 2 things we have to work with, logos and ousia. So the better we read together, the more understanding we can have of the nature of the self, but we can also imagine what it would be like to experience it. Would it be a kind of a joke? So yeah, so some people talk about it's kind of like a punchline. And for some, it brings a smile upon their face when they realize the nature of the self, and they see how it is constantly unfolding the logos through a paradigm of the whole, second hypothesis, to us in each moment that we can participate in to benefit by, so long as we use the dialectic, third hypothesis, the activity of mind. So yeah. So a 5th hypothesis person isn't in any of those 3 because they think it's beyond them. Beyond them. We are just a part in the physical world. That's the level I've reached. And all those people in the physical world that come together as a whole in groups singing Kumbaya to Jesus or Allah or Moses, They're all idiots. Don't they get that they're idiots? Says a fifth hypothesis person. But we can expand this model to include 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. A ninth hypothesis person says there isn't even parts in the physical world. There isn't even a meaningful activity that you can do in the physical world. So it's denying everything. Nihilism, which we can recognize as the lowest hypothesis. And as we've been saying, if this is how you think, if this is your style of understanding, then it's how you function in the world. It's how you think. It's how you relate to people. Also, it's going to be a feeling state. If you relate to the world in such a way where there's nothing meaningful, maybe you feel lonely or sad or depressed. State of mind. By the way, if it's your way of understanding things, it's also the way of understanding yourself. Therefore, your existence as self, your power or your state of mind, and your activity, that's the fundamental triad we've been using for everything. Everything has a kind of existence, has some sort of power, and has some sort of activity. But notice that and by the way, this triad applied to how we move upward. The activity, Apollo, reading, the logos, the state of mind or the power, Aphrodite, bringing our reading together into a whole. And if we keep doing that, we'll end up mastering Hermes, Apollo, Aphrodite, Hermes the dialectic. But what we are using this triad for right now is saying that triad applies to ourselves and others around you. Yes. You're functioning towards yourself and others. Exactly right. So the problems, our level of hypothesis, the current level we're at, we relate to ourselves, and because we think it's right, we relate to others. That's the idea of projection. In any of these hypotheses below stage 4, we project our problems onto others. Which is a very good way of understanding the problems we face in the world. What does MAGA do? Call everyone else pedophiles. What did we discover about Republicans? What do you know? What do the Jews say? We are the ones being victimized. What are they doing? Genocide. They project the nature of their problem and their way of thinking onto others. What do conservatives say about the progressives? They're all lying to you. They're all scamming you. Why? Because that's their hypothesis. They can't imagine someone in a greater hypothesis, so they project everyone else's points and not take action, says our chatter. And Emma says,
Do a poggers.
Do a poggers. So, the triad of self. Our functioning, our activity, the roles we can and can't play, the state of mind through which we function, and our idea of self. Notice the ideal. The self is the first hypothesis. The ideal state of mind as a whole, second hypothesis. And our ideal functioning through the dialectic. Providentially, using the whole of self and the paradigm or the whole of mind as the model of everything that can exist. The model of beauty itself, the model of justice itself. Using those wholes in your functioning through parts or in your activity, the logos. So those are the ideals that we're after. So we can also use this map to understand our ideal that we're after. And yes, so by the way, that state of mind and that functioning is called wisdom, but we can infer a deeper wisdom, the wisdom of the self. standard program we seem to have forgotten. This book is called The Greatest Book Never Read. Now, we can read this book now. We have the Balboa translation. Although it's very challenging because you're not paid, Parmenides wasn't paid by the word. Every word is meaningful. So the same way that we've been reading this book, the time we take, the reflections we do, we can take with us in how to read the Parmenides. But also now we have an understanding of the map, it's going to be easier. We'll find each of these 9 hypotheses uses the same terms, whole and part, same and different, beauty, justice, goodness, but talks about them in different ways. The relationships change. So, just as we have these 4 positives, the one ideal sitting apart from it, and 4 extra ones which are defined in rejection or opposition of these 4, so too can we do the same with interpretation. With our negative responses, if this is our positive movement or anagogic movement, so too can we create a map for interpretation. And that's what we've got from Socrates. And he's given us examples all the way through the book that we can bring together for ourselves. But he started us off, hey, the ideal when you are introduced to a new idea would be to accept that new idea. It's true. But of course, the worst is to simply reject it. So there we could draw our lines from the hypothesis. To reject it. We should all have universal basic healthcare, universal housing, universal income. Societies will all, if our material conditions are met, which is simply putting the word universal in front of every human need, then we would have a 1,000,000 times better world that we can live in, and our lives would be 1,000,000 times better. Simple. Universal, what's that speaking to? A principle. What do we do with principles? We apply them universally, so not us versus them. No need to drop bombs on the other team, otherwise you'd have to drop bombs on yourself, unless you're a hypocrite. So no more war, no more hoarding of wealth. What do the billionaires do with their wealth? Well, murder people. Sometimes in rooms on Epstein Island, sometimes with bombs in Palestine, sometimes by starving them to death in your own country because they can't afford housing. So what would put an end to that? Universal wealth inequality. It's hard to scam a child onto Epstein Island if they can afford to pay rent and food, but if they are vulnerable, impoverished, living in a war-torn country, very easy. So, simple new truth, universal principles, applied universally to universally benefit. Hooray! What happens if you tell that to somebody who is growing up in a brainwashed family? They will say, fuck you. You're a communist. You're a socialist. They will reject this new idea, even though they would benefit, even though it's true. Just reject it outright. Now, the next stage, they would offer an alternative system. You know, yeah, that's all good, but maybe we don't want people to lose their incentives to working for Epstein. We need to keep them a little bit impoverished, so let me offer the alternative. My team can have housing and food, but etc., etc. But the other team, the next stage, so that's all your own beliefs. Adapt some of the new to fit your old. Oh, I see. Okay, so how can we use this idea of universal principles like universal healthcare, but still keep capitalism? Adapting the old to suit, adapting the new to suit their old. Trying to unify the old. Hey, there's good on both sides. How can we do a little bit of war for the conservatives, a little bit of sadistic violence against human beings, a little bit of destroying the world for the conservatives, and a little bit of progression towards truth and understanding? Can't we all hold hands and sing Kumbaya? Can we have groups that are based on belief, that is based on division in opposition to understanding, and just pretend that they don't inflict this on themselves and others and their children? Trying to unify the old and new. Now, that would mean if we're using the model of the dialectic, which has definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion, which is fascinating because of all of the primary ideas we use for thought, the most primary, the most fundamental principle of everything is self. The one self of the first hypothesis. For there to be any sort of unfolding into experience or creation, other. Therefore, the most primary terms possible, the most fundamental words that you use to distinguish anything is self and other. Before I pick up my coffee, I have to distinguish this is other than me. Otherwise, I'll drink my fingers.
Brain rot escalates.
What? Is that a brain what? Come on.
I don't know if you know this, but like weird dudes exist everywhere.
That's true. So, self and other. And all we're doing is taking those two most primary ideas, concepts, units of thought, and arranging them in their four possible combinations. Now, to explore an idea, so let's finish this. Self to itself, definition, self to others, how does it function, others to others, division, and then as a result, other back to the original idea. Other back to self. Now, as we've been saying, if you're exploring an idea, take the ideas from the text, so you're not just projecting your own beliefs you're already carrying. That's why it's so important to have a shared text. That's one of the reasons why these debate programs, where it's two people saying, well, I believe that gay people shouldn't get married. Why? Well, because gay people are more likely to murder their children. Based on what? Oh, some paper. Well, where did you get it? No, it's forget it. Forget about it. Just to forget about it. But if we had the paper in front of us, we would have a shared text to look at from which we can derive the facts to put together the puzzles and solve the problem. Adapting the language universally so the masses can understand. Yeah. Yes, that's another point. That's another point. As you go through this process, then you can communicate your journey into the mastering of the dialectic to others in a way where you can maybe help other heroes on the hero's journey using language they can understand. That's the fun.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
It's through the use of analogies, dude. So, in the text, what we've also got is, for example, Paul rejects the new idea of Jesus, the idea of heaven being a state of mind that you develop through an understanding analogies, through his parables. Paul rejects that. 5. Mark says, hey, fuck you, Paul, you son of a bitch, and rejects Paul. He says to Paul,
I don't know if you know this, but like,
Please end kink shaming on your show.
me? Do I do king shaming?
Jesus Christ, Emma, this is not Opie and Anthony or whatever the hell.
Jesus Christ, Emma. Don't throw insults like that.
that's weird that you think that.
It's weird, Emma. So, Mark would be a ninth hypothesis interpretation. One who rejects the rejector. So, and that's for us to play with ourselves. So, is there somebody who offered an alternative to Jesus' idea? Or Socrates' idea? We've got a spammer. Spam. Where's my spam button? Hold, please. Hold. I have to press the spam button.
Queen of Gooning.
No, not Queen of Gooning. Spam. Where's spam? Hold. Here we go.
Further fill the internet with spam and AI slop.
That's AI slop.
This guy has found something beyond slop.
It's beyond slop.
This is like the worst use of AI.
Yep. So that's to the spammer in chat.
Gooner.
You're a gooner. Gooner.
Gooners.
Definitely gooners. So, you do react to the new idea, but you offer an alternative system. Hey, this is what I like. Let's do Jewish stuff. Let's do Mormon stuff. Let's wear your magic Mormon underpants. I'm fascinated by the magic Mormon underpants. And some people might come along and say, hey, all underpants matters. And you don't just have to do gooning. Wait, soaking. You can be a reasonable gooner.
Gooners.
Be a reasonable gooner.
You can be a reasonable gooner without soaking. So using the ideas, using the specific people in the text, is there someone who offered an alternative system, and is there someone who rejected that? Now that's interesting because we've been seeing that not only do we want the map of our development of understanding through the different ways of thinking that we could have in the world, but we can also just wonder about how we can move. For example, if you're a fifth hypothesis person and you say the only thing we have is parts in the physical world, we can't come together as a whole, and definitely we can't participate with mind or self. Fifth hypothesis. Socrates has been saying, if you understand the ninth hypothesis, nihilism, you reject even parts of the physical world. There's not even a physical world. There's not even any meaningful activity. We're just all in brains in a vat or something like that. And the vat isn't even real. You will show how there is a necessity for that position you're rejecting. Now, if you can see not only your own position as the fifth, understand your worldview, but understand there's a kind of necessity for it to exist by jumping over to the ninth, then you gain an understanding of your position and its necessity, which can give you a kind of detachment from that position. If you see it's necessary for there to be this position as a reflection of mind in the physical world, which necessarily has to exist as a reflection of self. For there to be whole and parts, there has to be this section that's parts. It's not the ultimate, it's a stage of development, but it has a kind of necessary existence in any reality that unfolds from a single cause. It happens to be the self. So you're understanding your position, but you're also recognizing its necessity within a greater whole. That can give you some perspective. It helps you to stand back, which can give you a kind of detachment from your position, allowing you to move to the next. So it's a kind of zigzag. You're in 5, you go to the 9, you see the necessity for 5, the impossibility of 9, because it assumes the thing it's rejecting, in a way that frees you to move. The fifth hypothesis isn't the only possible one. It's one among many. Just as you might find a Taoist who experiences oneness of all reality or pure consciousness. Something that might be very easy to take as the ultimate, because it's the ultimate experience, not the ultimate stage. There are people in the sixth hypothesis who reject it. There is no ultimate principle of justice and beauty or reality. The best we can get is create socialism or Marxism or communism or any of the isms. It's a function of mind to bring together the model of everything, but it's something we invent. It doesn't exist eternally. If you fully understand that sixth position as a kind of joke, you'll see the absurdity that follows because it requires the second hypothesis to exist. Would seeing that open your mind to a possibility of even this brilliant light of consciousness being a part within a hierarchical whole? Allowing you to have the conversation that Jesus is having with Socrates, or Socrates is trying to have with Jesus, where Socrates is saying, even that peak experience that made you think you were enlightened, Jesus, has to have a cause. Because currently Jesus is getting a bit butthurt. Jesus is saying,
You know what? Suck my dick.
to Socrates, he's saying,
What is this? The damn Opie and Anthony? Okay, whatever.
oh, whatever.
He's so far up his own ass.
He's so far up his own ass, says says Jesus to Socrates. Now, why am I talking about that? Because maybe, again, this hypothesis, this map hasn't been invented. It's for us to invent and add to the human game, to the human tradition, to the what we need as humans to develop. If we can have the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th interpretation, if we start off as someone rejecting the new, could we then go over to, if we start off as like Pauline, like most Christians are Pauline, who rejects the teachings of Jesus to embrace faith or belief, which is the opposite of what Jesus said. If we get into Mark, and we read the Gospel of Mark, we can see that Jesus had a brilliant light experience and talked about understanding and not belief. Will that free us from our current position as Pauline Christians? What I learned, anything you come true if you believe. Ah, that's silly. Maybe if you're a magic, can you believe your way into being 6 foot tall? If so, there would be fewer incels in the world. So, a kind of zigzag movement from your position to its rejection, back to the position you're used to be in, but as a more free to possibly be more open to that new idea. Maybe. We haven't explored movements, but that's the possibility. Well, technically, yeah, you can believe your way into being taller. How? Magic? See, belief is just listening to someone else's bullshit. I believe the priest when he tells me whatever about God. I believe my mummy and daddy. I believe, I don't know, fairy tales. It's the root cause of human problems. It's the 4th hypothesis. Because if you understand something, who would you have to believe? Do you have to believe anyone if you understand it? And by the way, has belief got anything to do with truth? Do people believe racist shit? Do people believe sexist shit? Therefore, what can we say about belief's relationship to truth? Well, it's your experience, no one else's. What do you mean? Do you think racism is true because someone grew up and experienced a racist parent? Or was his parent wrong? Because just believing something doesn't make it true. Are there some people who lie about their beliefs? Yes to what? Yes, racism is true. You're racist. Sexism is true. You think women are less than men? For that individual, relativism. So, someone who says, well, yeah, actually, you should kill all the Jews, or you should murder all the women, or enslave women, because who's to say what's right and wrong? Any thinking in mind, any activity of mind is just all bullshit. Nothing's true. Anything's true. Who's to say? That's the establishment Democrats who are not standing up to fascism because, hey, if it's true for Donald Trump to murder people for fun, then that's true, I guess. That's just as true as people who say that we shouldn't murder people. It's a rejection of the third hypothesis. Because just as belief has nothing to do with truth, it's the fourth hypothesis root cause of our problems. One such belief is there is no truth. It's all just whatever you perceive it to be. Hey, if I believe 2 and 2 is 4, if I believe I'm a pilot because I've had a few drinks on first, I'm one of those rich people in first class, so I've had a few drinks, and I believe I'm the pilot now, then that's just as true as anyone else's truth. So I should barge in and take over the plane. Right? We should allow that. If your uncle believes he's a dentist and he wants to hammer away at your face with a hammer because he believes he's a dentist, then that's true for him, right? That's his experience. He's just as much of a dentist as anyone else. And we should allow children to go into his house and have their face smashed in with his hammers. That's seventh hypothesis. That's a way of thinking that rejects the third. But notice, all we had to do is apply it to something. See, the thing is, when people say, oh, everything's opinion and nothing is true, and if it's true for you, then it's just your truth. And if you believe it hard enough, if you close your eyes and you pray to Jesus hard enough, then it will become true because magic. All we have to do is apply it to something where you can actually test it. What if you were on the plane? Would you actually believe that shit? Or would you say there is actually understanding of how to fly a plane? If a 4-year-old believed he was a pilot, that doesn't mean anything. That's stupid. The position is stupid. See? All we did was understand the seventh hypothesis that rejects the possibility of understanding, and we see that very thing that we are rejecting is absolutely necessary. And absurdity follows if we play out the consequences of the seventh. So, the thing that we reject, we show the necessity for. Of course, there has to be understanding. By the way, for us to engage in this kind of reasoning, to show that relativism is crazy, that belief has nothing to do with truth. So fourth is gone, seventh is gone. That nihilism is also depressing and false position. There has to be a pattern and activity of mind that exists eternally so that I was able to follow it, you were able to follow it, and we could come to a conclusion that we could use to benefit anybody. See? The activity of exploring that position presumes the thing that we're rejecting. Is there a similar kind of movement through interpretation? Yes, the map of souls. I just introduced a new idea. Now, I'm not having a go at you. I am very aware that on this Twitch channel, Hassan Piker has 50,000 viewers on average. Asmongold has 50,000 viewers on average. I have 1 viewer on average. I'm very much aware that these ideas are rare in our world. And the sorts of souls who are open, who have a good enough heart, openness, and a good enough head, interest in understanding, are rare. You are a rare person for being here. So that is to say, this kind of reflection is very rare to have ever happened in someone's life. So it's never anything personal. And when I say it's a crazy position, I don't mean you're crazy. I'm not saying
Brain rot escalates.
I'm not saying you have brain rot.
It's sad. And I'm sad for you.
I'm not saying I'm sad for you, because many of these stages of human development require another person to come in and share reasoning from the third hypothesis, dialectic, to free you from a position you're in. Take a look at the seventh. The seventh rejects the third. If you grew up in a family and a culture, by the way, the seventh hypothesis, everything is relative to personal opinion. Everything is relative to perspective. What's true for you is true for you, and what's true for me is true for me, is one of the most common. Of course, you are not you are appealing to, I hope to appeal to a wider audience. That's the goal. But, you know, it will require a few people who are first through that wall with the courage and composure and patience and persistence to break through that wall first, before it becomes popular within humanity. But I hope it does. So this position is very common. Everything is relative. It's one of the most common beliefs of our age. So if somebody came like the Kool-Aid man, yes, exactly like the Kool-Aid man.
It makes sense.
Makes sense. So if you believe, oh, every opinion is just relative and there's no truth, seventh hypothesis, and someone who was a philosopher came along in the third hypothesis and started to reason you through these arguments, there could come a point where you go, hang on a second, you're reasoning me through understanding. Yeah, I am. To reach a true insight. Yeah. Because the truth will benefit me. Yeah. But hang on a second, my position is there is no truth. What? Yeah. Any argument you make, I can dismiss, throw it out the window by saying, well, that's just your opinion. Your argument is just true for you and my truth is true for me. So let's walk away, staying stuck in the positions we are in. So there's a kind of, so even as you read yourself, you might try and reason about your position. But as you gain an understanding, that same counterattack of interpretation you might use to yourself. Maybe you've had a glimpse of reality, or a glimpse of self, or you begin to love understanding and philosophy. That voice could come into your own head and say, nah, that's just garbage. You've been tricked. Socrates is an idiot. You can't experience enlightenment. What are you? You think you're Buddha or something? That's just your perspective, and your perspective is crazy. You're crazy. So there are some positions that are so self-contained and self-protective, have a self-defeating or self-protecting mechanism, that it might require another person to come along in your life and relate to you in a new way that challenges you. Which is another reason why we tell the truth. Whatever you've understood about this, even if you're still in the seventh, you think, well, reasoning is good, but, you know, there's no true reason. There's no logos. But I still like reasoning. That might help someone in the ninth, because they don't even think there's anything good in reasoning. They don't think there's anything that exists at all. So even you in the seventh can use whatever understanding you have, so long as you relate with a love of understanding, third hypothesis, with a desire to care for your fellow man, so empathy and understanding, that's the third hypothesis, that's the logos. Even if your logos has only reached the seventh, you could still personify that, demonstrate what you've defined as your own way of being, and that relationship with another human being might be enough to challenge their worldview and free them from where they're at. So wherever you are, you're good enough, at least for some people who are lower down on the ladder. And so we are saying, hey, could a similar thing be true for interpretation? Now, we won't know until we make it. And you can use the characters in the book as examples of the four kinds of interpretation or rejection, or saving your old beliefs, or pathologos counterattacks. And the expanded set, which includes those that reject those positions. So, given that, can we keep in mind this map of interpretations along with the map of development as we go back? So we're taking this full week of reflection on this map back with us to the text to see if we can better understand this twist in the book, because Jesus seems to be different, responding differently to Socrates. And for the first time in the text, Socrates doesn't begin his response to Jesus with yes. He begins it with no. He doesn't yes and. So in improv, in improv comedy or improv acting, there's a fundamental golden rule. When you're on stage and someone creates an idea, hey, this is a lovely day for an ice cream. Your job is to say yes and. Yes, it is. And my favorite flavor is chocolate. What's your favorite flavor? Build on it. Take it to the next step. Meet them where they're at. Take them to the next step. This map is helpful because we're doing a similar thing, but not improv comedy, improv philosophy in the conversations we have with people. This point in the text, Socrates doesn't say yes and. He says no. So let's see if we can understand why, what stage Jesus is on, what stage Socrates is introducing, and what stage of counterattack interpretation is Jesus having. Let's jump in. There we go.
There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward. So you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right. It's a win-win.
Important to remember. Almost as if Socrates is affirming boundaries with JC. Interesting. That's an interesting way of looking at it, right? Yes. What boundary are you at, Jesus? Where are you at? But notice our tool. So as a person, as a homie, we have, Socrates has created a space where Jesus feels safe to talk about his highest vision. He's not being called dumbass.
Get the fuck out.
He's not being told to get the fuck out.
Dead-eyed, and I don't use this kind of terminology lightly, dimwits.
He's not being called a dimwit. And as we've covered in the text, we have done a dialectic on punishment to define definitively, in principle, punishment is always bad. It doesn't solve problems. It doesn't create the space for you to be honest, because all it does teach you is don't be honest and don't get caught. And even better, be a tyrant, be the one dishing out the punishment, be the cop, be the conservative, be the ICE member if the only two options is the punisher and the punishee. Also, metaphysically, there isn't punishment within the cosmos. There seems to be consequences of how you play out your life, with how much of the logos you master and how much of your pathologos false beliefs you purify, because that will allow you to do just things, and how much you share it with others allows you to be a just influence on others. There seems to be a consequence on your reincarnations, and if you do injustice, there seems to be some sort of having to experience the consequences of that, not as punishment, but as a kind of consequences as a learning tool, with a possibility of escaping that cycle of punishment, or not punishment, the cycle of pain through learning. In other words, the learning we do here doesn't just benefit our own soul here in this life and our loved ones. It also affects our reincarnation, negatively or positively, depending on how we live. And in a similar way, we want to reflect that justice of reality. We don't want to just inflict pain, punishment, or enjoy it as a mark of knowing, as believers do, sadism. We want to create the space where people can be honest and open about their highest vision of reality. We also want to encourage a learning of third hypothesis, logos, so they can talk about it, because that's our two tools: self-reflection, or a vision of ourselves through some sort of self-reflection, a peak experience of consciousness, mind turning around, ousia, on itself, or self turning around to see itself. What's your highest vision of self or reality? And what's the other thing that we have? Self-reflection and language. We put words on it. That is the logos, ousia and logos. So we've created the space as individuals, or as Socrates, for people to be honest about their highest vision and share words about it. Because there's never punishment. So long as you are good faith, you genuinely want to learn, then that's what we're here for. You're not supposed to get it right. In fact, the more that you have the opportunity to share your highest vision, the more you can test how well you can see it and how well you can explain it. And by creating that condition, we now have Jesus's words, and it's through our mastery of the logos within the map of interpretation, the map of progression through the logos, the dialectic structure. Here we go. Definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. And our collection of the key terms we use. The things we bring into a oneness for understanding. Hey, when you want to understand this stuffy, it's a seal. You take his paw and his head, you take the parts and you bring it to a whole. You see it's the same as this stuffy, in that it's a stuffy, but it's different because it's not yellow. So these duads that allow for our understanding, the reason why we do that understanding is so we can reach our goodness. There are single terms: justice, beauty, benefit, excellence, truth, oneness, reality. These are things we seek because it brings with it a goodness. And of course, so there's twos, ones, and a set of three. For every goodness, there is a lesser version, an imitation, in the physical world, our beliefs. There is the greater, the direct apprehension, the peak experience of beauty, the peak experience of goodness, the model of justice, the paradigm of justice we need for our life and our world. That's in mind. And of course, the ultimate. That's true for anything. That's to do with truth. Truth. The false, the truth, and the principle of true itself. Or the copy, the model, and the principle of creation. That's a greater ultimate. So that's all we're using, just those 3 basketball teams, each with their captain, oneness, goodness, truth. Three basketball teams, 4 categories of the dialectic. 4 if there is, 4 if there isn't. And those 2 maps, the hypotheses of logos and the hypotheses of interpretation. Understanding the dialectic in chat is literally the foundations of your reality. Yeah. Because you're doing it anyway. You're a living dialectic. Everything you do is because you think it's good. You have some definition of what's good or beneficial or beautiful. And then your life, you try and demonstrate or function in that way to reach that. And that idea or definition plays out in every division of your life. You want to date a beautiful girl. You want to play a good game. You want to have a good profession in your life. And as a result of this division, you end up with a conclusion that will support or disprove your definition. So you're living a dialectic based on the ideas. So that's the first kind of dialectic. The dialectic on the ideas in mind. The non-physical dimension of consciousness that we can reach if we separate our body or our consciousness from our physical body. But there's a second kind of dialectic to do with the self. This is the one that governs our life, because we have some definition or idea of the self in relation to the self. Your false image of yourself you get from childhood. We all get it. It's the cause of all human problems. The pathologos. Not the logo self, the pathologo self. That causes your state of mind. Self to other, or the overlap between self and other, your state of mind. That state of mind causes your functioning in every area of your life. It's through that state of mind that you function in your relationships, in your life drama, in your fantasies, in your daydreams, and especially in your night dreams. Because your night dreams are specifically messages about this very structure. And as a result, you end up confirming, hey, if you believe that you are, I don't know, a targeted white man in a world full of racist injustice against you, then you'll have a certain state of mind, MAGA state of mind maybe, smug. And then you'll take that state of mind when you see a black person, and you'll be smug Hey, you're all like this, and I know what you're like, and you're just like this, and you're gonna get in their face, and you're gonna treat them like that, and you're gonna piss him off till eventually he's gonna turn around and smack you in the face. And then as a result of your division or action, you'll end up confirming the belief you already had about yourself and reality that you came in with. That's debate. Debate is you get given a belief, your job is to confirm it. That's conservatism, confirming the beliefs you already have. And everything you do in your life is a way of justifying that belief. Religion, same thing. I know Mormon underpants are the magic underpants and they're the special underpants for gooning.
Debate dweeb.
Debate dweebs.
Gooners.
For gooning. Gooning underpants.
You can be a gooner.
In a gooning underpants. Exactly. Right. Confirming from your actions, get a reaction. Your actions in your division, get a reaction. And from that reaction, you derive your own conclusion. That confirms. So we're doing a dialectic anyway. Only the tragedy of human existence is our dialectic, our life energy, our life existence is a confirmation of the false belief about self that we begin with, or that we pick up, that we learn from childhood, as a result of growing up in the house you grew up in the family you grew up in the culture you grew up in the time you grew up in the planet you grew up in. If that's the case, then every single person, even if they're well-intentioned, ends up further entrenching themselves in the false idea of self that they came into this life in order to remove. Because Socrates has been saying, hey, the only thing that's preventing your upward movement through reincarnations to higher levels of reality is an idea that you'll lose yourself. Or this higher idea of self is inconsistent with your lesser or negative idea of self. You think about yourself.
You know what? Suck my dick.
But then the higher dimension of yourself thinks,
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
you won't be joy maxing.
I think it's so awesome.
Hubba hubba. I just want more testosterone to human body ratio, and I'll finally be satisfied.
Calm down, Emma.
Be a reasonable gooner.
Be a reasonable gooner, Emma. The biggest worst enemy is you. Exactly. Or the you that you think you are. Which means you spend your life further entrenching yourself in this diminished idea of self, which was the very thing you've been born into this life to experience through time, through a dialectic expression through time, so you can learn about that false idea of yourself that prevented your upward joy-maxing development in higher dimensions of reality. Instead of actually addressing it through the dialectic, dream analysis, and midwifery, the things we learn here, you end up doing yourself more harm. Therefore, what does Socrates say? An unexamined life isn't worth living, because you're just doing more harm. There's no middle ground. You're doing a dialectic, or you're doing a crappy dialectic. All we're doing here is learning that that's the game, and learning the tools to play it properly, to have fun, to joy max.
Oh my fuck.
Oh my fuck. Now here's the extra bit. While this false idea of yourself is the beginning definition that causes your states of mind and your functioning and your your conclusion, your self-justification, your self-fulfilling prophecy, the higher idea of self is creating each moment, each frame in the movie that we experience as motion in time. Like our eye takes a picture every 32 times a second or something. And that self is doing so with the idea of the highest state of mind. So the first hypothesis through the second hypothesis, using the paradigm of everything, or the whole of all parts, this part, mind, as the paradigm. It's the one you perceive as it's not the one behind the veil. Exactly. We are lifting the veil or removing the fog of our pathologos beliefs. Well said.
Oh, fuck.
Why is that a positive one?
This is why I love this channel, man.
This is a good channel. So, the actual self is functioning through the paradigm of our actual mind to create each moment in a way that actually is understandable and beneficial. First, second, third hypothesis. In order to participate in that benefit, we have to learn the language of that communication. If self is speaking to you in French and you don't bother learning French, well, no croissant for you, baby.
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
No croissant for you, little baby.
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting. Also,
What is this? The damn Opie and Anthony? Okay, whatever.
it's the Opie and Anthony show. What does that mean? Well, didn't we just say every relationship drama, every daydream, every sexual fantasy or random fantasy, every night dream, every random thought is a message about the false idea of self that you, the main character in your fantasies, image of self, that is expressed through the state of mind, that has some sort of role in a drama, and every thought, every tangent has some sort of conclusion that concludes in a success or failure. Everything? Yo, what's up? Welcome. Therefore, if everything is an expression of this same dialectical structure, reflecting either the false image of yourself that you are specifically here to remove, or the true idea of self that is itself the thing that's creating everything, self. I stream most days, yeah. The highest state of mind, the highest kind of functioning that can lead to your highest purpose or destiny, then every single moment, every thought, every possible way that there could be a communication with you, there is a communication with you about two things: your false idea of self that you're here to address, or your true nature of yourself that is God itself unfolding reality through that state of mind, intelligibly and beneficially or providentially in each moment. The only thing we have to do is wake up and listen, which means we're learning the language. This language, the language of the structure of the dialectic. D, 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 C. That's it. That's the whole game. If you don't pay attention, what's the problem of interpretation? What's the problem of belief? You take it literally. You take your problems literally. You think, oh, well, this idea of myself that comes up in my distractions or motivates my states of mind, motivates my way of being. Yes, that's me. I know what I am. I'm right all the time. I'm the bestest boy. I learned about myself from mummy and daddy, and they were the wisest gurus in the world. Literalism. It's not literal. In fact, we've learned that the Greeks said that people who take their beliefs literally are called barbarians. This is the savagery of human ignorance, taking your idea of self, your family states of minds and way of beings, the role you're attached to, and living your life confirming the bullshit beliefs you grew up with. That's what keeps you a zombie. That's the zombie virus. That's what makes humans savages. Literal, taking it literally. Our job as human beings is to understand the language. It's not literal, it's analogical. It's an analogical, or a movie, just like every frame in our life. It's a movie analogically representing either our false idea of self we are specifically here to remove, or the true nature of self, which is our excellence we are able to achieve once we free ourselves from our false pathologos beliefs of self. Every single moment. So if every single moment is a message about how to remove your problems and reach your excellence, why do human beings suck so much? Why do human beings...
Dude, suck my dick.
Well...
What the hell kind of a show is this? What is this, the comedy mothership?
Why do we suck so much? Let me catch up with chat. That cool. Streaming every day actually helps in channel engagement. Oh yes, thank you. So how long have you been streaming on Twitch? A couple of years? Are you still reading the chat, bro? Well, I think I've answered that question. And thanks for the follow. Hooray. So what's the deal? 1, 2, 3. Reality. Every message is 1, 2, 3, 4. Message either about the false dialectic you are living out in every moment, in every thought, in every fantasy, or the truth, which is unfolding in every moment in time. If you don't mind, can you share me your next milestone for streaming? What's that? If you join the Discord, you'll get a notification when we go live. There's a link below. I usually stream around this time most days. But yeah, you can also follow on YouTube. We're about, you can find the old episodes on YouTube. We're reading the book that bangs the hardest. This book bangs so hard, your grandchildren will have CTE. I mean, your goals for the channel, or what are you looking to achieve on your channel? Oh, what we're talking about now. Waking people up to the nature of all human problems and the fact that all human problems are solvable so long as you pay attention to the language you are being communicated to in, at all times, in all possible ways. But human beings don't just have a problem of learning what's true. If it was just that simple, I would have 50,000 Hassan Piker followers and 50,000 Asmon Gold followers. That's like 200,000 people right there. So what's the issue? The issue is people think they already know shit they don't. That's the human problem. The human problem is we take our false beliefs we are identified with literally. Everyone thinks they know. And so if you say this, even in a very simple way, even numbering it 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4, even demonstrating it, even referring to the book that we've been reading, people won't listen. Why are you asking me all these questions about my streaming? I just said that there is a way of solving all of your problems and reaching your highest excellence. Why didn't you listen? Isn't that a big deal? Isn't that cool? Isn't that interesting? That's why we need the second map. So, the level of development towards this understanding we have mapped within the 9 hypotheses of Parmenides. 9, rejecting that completely because nothing exists. 8, there's just the physical thing. That's okay. I'm just curious. Why are you asking these questions? Are you trying to sell something? Are you a spammer?
It's a scam.
Some people, all they think is the physical world exists. And so the best thing to do is try and get your bag, bro. Get the dollar bills, y'all. All human beings are just parts in the physical world to be manipulated to get your money. 8th hypothesis. Why aren't you answering my questions, Chatter? 7th hypothesis. All reasoning is a matter of opinion. Just use your reasoning to try and scam people.
And this is spam.
7th hypothesis. 6th hypothesis, etc., all the way through. But also, when you introduce a new truth, people will have these reactions. So, it's really, really wonderful. I'm not here to scam you, right? Okay, what are you here for? What's the motivation motivating your soul? What's the highest idea of good that your soul has that's motivating your state of mind and your functioning? What's the highest good that you're seeking? So, there is a language called the dialectic that's communicating to us in each moment. Most people will reject that because of their old beliefs. So, worth pointing out for ourselves, worth understanding. As a language, you're a social media promoter. You like to support me. Why me? What do I do that was worth supporting? Why not Asmongold? What makes me so fascinating? Why, when you look at me, do you say...
Honestly, on the real, I say...
Where's the joy?
Cool as a cuke.
That I'm cool as a cuke?
Cool as a cuke.
Are you a...
Further fill the internet with spam and AI slop.
Are you an AI slop?
But you shut up. You shut the hell up for a second. You're not real.
Are you real? Or do you say...
Cookie maxing.
That you're here to cookie max? Alright, so that's the thing. Now let's take all this with us. Understanding of the ideal. Understanding how Socrates is demonstrating that. Understanding of the map that will allow us to recognize at what stage towards the apprehension of that communication through each moment that benefits us through the language of the dialectic. Third, the paradigm through which that's being delivered. Second, and the self that is the cause of all reality. The highest idea of God, the self, the one self. How far is Jesus along to this apprehension, and what will happen if he has a negative response? Let's jump in. Okay, says Chatter, to show that I am real. That's good.
This is like even worse than AI sludge somehow.
Because you don't want to be Unreal and AI sludge.
But you shut up. You shut the hell up for a second. You're not real.
Drop a Discord name and we'll chat through a voice call. Ugh. So I want to talk to a weirdo chatter in chat who is not answering my questions about what his motivations are, his highest good, and why he wants to relate to me. Sounds like
AI slop.
An AI conversation. How much money are you offering me? What's the money you're offering me? How much money to have this call? Have this business meeting with this chatter? It's a little bit sad that I only get scammers on my... Not only scammers, I appreciate the dozen or so people who watch the VODs and the people who stop by and chat, who aren't scammers, who aren't slots.
AI slop.
All right, so jumping in to the text. So here we are. Jesus is outlining his vision because of the conditions that have been met to make him feel safe for doing so. No punishment, no blame, no shame, etc., etc., because we've nailed that down in a dialectic. The life of the spirit is not without mind, and mind is not without its spiritual dimension. So, non-physical experience of something he calls mind. So possibly in this realm here. So that being one, we can move towards the divine. The divine is intelligible, embracing within itself all that has been. So that sounds like a paradigm, or everything that can happen in time, experienced out of time. And leading towards its destiny. So, objective destiny means the universal purpose for all of us. So, an objective truth. The quest began with an openness we call pure ignorance. That's what we've been talking about. To be open to new ideas means you're willing to let go of the old beliefs that are challenged by the new. That's the map of interpretation we go through. Just as an aside, I've been doing this most of my life, and there have been moments where people have been open to a new idea that's new to them and different from their old beliefs they're carrying, different from everything else they've heard in their life. But those moments I could count on one hand, or maybe two hands. The people that are most open, curious, receptive to new ideas through reasoning, I could count on one hand and have fingers left over. So the fact that even someone like Jesus, whose whole claim to fame is he had an experience that transcends physical experiences that everyone else around him has had. As we've learned, he had training from Hellenic philosophers in his childhood. He was able to judge the states of mind in the stories of Mark. He was saying your state of mind is closer to heaven, but also he had a openness. He said, hey, your understanding and that state of mind, the logos, is better than mine. Leading up to his peak experience, it was after his peak experience he fell into his problems. Even that kind of rare person is being challenged. So something to keep in mind. Good to be like this, open, curious, etc., or in that state that Jesus calls pure ignorance. We call it aporia, philosophical ignorance. By the way, we will be getting into the symposium at some stage. The yoga of beauty and love starts with that openness. But yeah, I don't know. I know what the point is of that reflection. I suppose it is special to find people who are open in that kind of a way to new understanding, as rare as they happen to be. So, move towards something we can experience in its finality. Therefore, we listen to his words, and from his words we can derive the stage that he has reached. If it's an experience, it's below this line, so it's not the first. because experiences are either in mind or the physical world. He says everything all at once experienced as a whole. So it's ousia. So either second or fourth. Or sixth or eighth. He says it's mind and intelligible. So he's above this line. So we can drop down these guess who characters. And it's the divine, so it does exist, so not the sixth. Now notice, he might not use the ideal terms. Our job is to translate, just as if you're a doctor and a patient came into your office and says, I got an ouchie on my tum-tum. Now, ouchie might mean something in medical jargon. I have a... I don't know, what would a doctor say? You have a perforation in your stomachular cavity. See? That sounds kind of technical, right?
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
Great. He says, ouchie in my tum-tum. You say perforation in your stomachular cavity. So we are translating it into the logos. That's why it's important to have the primary self-logos terms, because the idea of whole and part, or out of time and in time, embrace all other personal language, or analogies we might use. I experienced all of evolution. Oh, that sounds like everything in time. It was infinity. Oh, that sounds like unlimited. See, these primary words incorporate everything else. The idea of scope. So, keep reading. Oh, we've lost our chatter. I thought he was going to offer me big things. He was going to be my promoter and social media manager. He didn't want to give me any money. Maybe he wanted me to give him money. That would be an interesting experiment. How would you go about promoting a philosopher on social media, considering it's a state of being that no one is going to be, well, very few people are going to be interested in, because it fundamentally challenges everyone's idea of self that they are identified with? Or
Personality maxing requires you to look inward on a deeper level, and it's harder to fix because then you have to make fundamental changes to who you are as a person. And it's because it feels like a much more core component of themselves that they don't want to change. Like, it's like, well, then if I change this, who am I? Who am I? 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 Am I?
poetic. Not poetic in the negative sense. Sometimes philosophers use the word poetic to point to bullshit. You can't do philosophy, but you can do make-em-ups. You can do poetry. But I don't mean that. I meant my use of effects made it sound beautiful and true. So, yeah, okay, goodbye to Dude in
This
Chat.
guy has found something beyond slop.
You found something beyond slop. Congratulations.
It's a total shit show.
Oh my goodness. Calm down, Emma.
What is this? The damn Opie and Anthony? Okay, whatever.
Okay, whatever. So, second hypothesis, Socrates. However, let's bring in our dudes again. However, the final stage is not within the realm of experience, since it transcends experience. Therefore, very easy. If it transcends experience, there's only one left. Now, we do have questions. Maybe there is a kind of ousia and logos version of the first, and there might be a position, the 11th and 12th hypothesis, that are in opposition to those. Don't know, possibly. And if there is such a thing, then we could improve on the hypotheses of Parmenides, improve on the greatest work of intelligence we have, or work of understanding we have so far. Now, you might make an argument, well, if this is the conclusion that someone who's reading this book will come to, then perhaps the author has also recognized the need for the 10th, 11th, and 12th hypothesis. But instead of saying it outright, because those things are going to challenge everyone in existence, unless they've reached the first hypothesis with the level of understanding we get from this book, these three are going to be challenges. Only a very, 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 very small group of people are open to the idea that the highest nature reality is the one self. Even philosophers struggle with this. By definition, it's the most challenging for a human being or anyone at this stage of development. So maybe the author has recognized that we can make these three improvements to the hypotheses, but has communicated it in a way that makes it a puzzle for us to solve. So we could say that this book is the greatest work. Could be a good argument. Or whatever we come up with could be the greatest work that we've can create as human beings. We can also package it with the hypotheses of interpretation, and we can also incorporate the ox herding pictures for how we integrate different stages. Well, then our friend in chat who wants to be our social media manager and promoter will have a very easy job because of what we are creating. Better than 1,000 Teslas. Better than 1 million Bugattis. Now, I'd like to see how we would try and market that. I would love to see it. How's my coffee? Cold. Might have to top it up. How are we for time? Now, back to the book. Beyond experience, so we know it's the first. Many cultures would reject this idea and consider it heretical. So I've been talking about how rare individuals are that are open to this idea of there being a transcendent first cause and purpose to our existence. But he's saying cultures, not just people, groups of people. Burn him at the stake, they would say. She's a witch, they would say. He's a infidel, goyim, heretic, they would yell. His magic underpants are not gooning enough through soaking, says the Mormons.
Gooner bait.
They're not, his magic underpants are not gooner bait,
Gooners,
says the Gooners. Right, nonsense. Let's keep reading. It pleases me that you've added a thoughtful addition to my position. Let's see how pleased he is. And this is likely to upset the many. Let's see if he's upset. But for all that, I would be pleased to hear you discuss it further. Now, he's open to the discussion of what would bring him from the second to the first. Let's see how it goes. I seldom express this explanation. There is a better so here we go. He starts with yes. Yes. See? Yes and. Yes. There is a better explanation, but we seldom express it openly because it is met with such scorn when it is shared. So good luck being our social media manager if it gets such scorn from everyone. And unless the audience has a high level of intelligence, it will likely be rejected.
It's a total shit show.
Anything for a click, no matter how. You just attacked my person. You just harmed my body.
I have a sickness for the thickness. What the hell's wrong with you people? You sick freaks.
Let's see if Jesus has that level of intelligence. Now, I find that intriguing. Please share this idea of yours. As above, as it is above, so it is below. Would you mind unpacking that expression? First, let us review the obvious. We need to understand. So, what are we doing now? Because we've already read this. Now we are reading it with an understanding in our back pocket of the map, where Jesus is at, where Socrates is at. The map of interpretations that people have to face with the introduction of a new idea. And even, we haven't looked at it for a while, but even the idea of the oxherding pictures that as you do have an encounter of a new idea or insight, there are stages of development of integration within it. Also, with the idea that we are wanting to become like Socrates. We want to help ourselves, our loved ones, anyone who we have the potential to help. Also, we want to help them move through these stages. And well, primarily ourselves. We want to have this conversation with us, especially when we are in a low state of mind or a black state of mind. Or we're thinking about ourselves in a negative kind of a way. Can we relate to ourselves in a friendly way, which is the art of the dialectic? In a way that can raise us out of those lesser hypotheses into the greater ones. So, but also, how do we respond when we counterattack that kind of dialogue? The dialogue that we have with ourselves, or a loved one is having with us, or a dialectician is having with us? Or how do we navigate the counterattacks from other people? So we're carrying all of these questions in mind as we read. What does that do? Aphrodite. All of these questions about what's meaningful to us and how we can use it makes this text meaningful. It's not a dry, dusty academic work. It's not Kant.
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Exactly. It's not who's a bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Get the fuck out.
We say get the fuck out to him.
I ate a steak. I'm stupid. I'm drunk all the time, you know. I'm just like you.
Hey, that's not very fair.
Get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out. It's meaningful. Aphrodite and Apollo have to walk hand in hand. So first, let's bring Socrates in. Where are you, buddy? Here you are. First, let us review the obvious. We need to understand why those who have experienced the most brilliant light of divine luminosity conclude that they have reached truth. Interesting. Why? Because the most brilliant light of divine luminosity is a description of what it feels like to be at the second as the experience. Why do they think they're it? Which might be because he's talking to someone who is there right now. That's his peak. Jesus might think he is it. Now we've also been saying, well, anyone who's blocked. Like old mate in chat today who is trying to scam me from making money, thinks that the seventh hypothesis is it. Get your bag, bro. This guy's talking about understanding the cause of my problems or my highest excellence. Fuck that. That's the third hypothesis. My position is opposed to that. Why does he think that he's reached truth? Might be a kind of reflection we could have with him. Why do you think this is the best way of being? Why do you think this is where you're at? This is all you can do. But we're not, we're talking to Socrates, so we're saying, hey, why do people who've reached this? By the way, there is a spiritual system that declares that's the highest peak. Taoism. they have that lovely symbol. Looks like this. Yeah, which means that any of these positions you could build a spiritual tradition around, cult around, and also if those people rise to positions of power within the society, you could have a society based on that division. Currently, we're here in the fourth, ruled by conservatives, capitalists, and religious, kings, clergy, and CEOs, kings, clergy, and capitalists, which is why we are suffering so much injustice. But also we mentioned that not only are we ruled by the fourth people, the heads of the believing billionaire class, Epstein class, we are also seventh hypothesis, as we talked about today, everything is relative to personal opinions or perspective, is a common one. Ruled by the fourth, many people are atheists, reject the idea, so there's some fourth and fifth, seventh in there, some materialism in there. So we could wonder about the cube. Which are the 1, 2, 3, 4 most common ones with this part of the cube as its leadership position that determine the current age we're in? Could be fun. Could be fun. Why do those who have reached the second hypothesis, divine, most brilliant light of divine luminosity, conclude that they have reached truth? Further, these people seek to teach others how to reach that state. Some go on to create a teaching. Hey, that's what we're just talking about. Hooray for us.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, very handsome and or pretty.
Thank you.
Jester Goon Maxed.
That's right. That's me. I'm just a goon maxed. They create a teaching from what they take to be the meaning of that experience. The reason they believe they have reached the truth is not only because they cannot imagine anything more real and more beautiful, interesting, but also that their light experience changes everything in their life. And by contrast, their former way of living seems empty and wasteful. If someone is in such a state or had experienced it, what if they were asked, "Hey, pal, you, Jesus, does every single experience have a cause?" So, now we've understood their own position, what it is, identified it on the map. We also can understand the logic that might attach them to that position. It's changed everything. A lot of like weirdo freak Christians talk about, oh, I was a criminal and then I got into fourth hypothesis. They wouldn't say fourth hypothesis. I got into fourth hypothesis belief and now my life has changed. And hey, by the way, you know it's all garbage. Fuck you, it changed my life. My life was bad before I started saying kumbaya to Jesus. I can't imagine anything more beautiful and real than the love that I get from my Sunday school group. See? They're often the most outspoken. They're usually the ones stopping you in the street saying, hey, Jesus is real. No, it's not. It's an idea that you haven't understood. No, it is. I used to be bad, but now I'm good. It changed my life. See? Same thing, but for second hypothesis. Hey, does every experience have a cause? If they could endure that question and don't reject it. Fifth interpretation. What if they would accept another question? Are causes superior to their effects and have an independent and prior mode of being? Would not that person have to conclude that peak experience experiences are always secondary to their causes. Right? Key terms: superior, independent, prior. Causes. What's that got to do with as above, so below? Hasn't come up yet, but we can infer that we can learn about the cause by its effects. As above, so below. So this peak experience, or hey, even that religious person, is there a cause for this appearance of God that you have when you sing Kumbaya to Moses or Muhammad or whoever got you in? Let's use an evangelistic Christian, a new life born again Christian. Hey, you think the closest to God is yelling at people in the street that they're going to hell because you finally get a sense of superiority that you've never had in your life because the education system has failed you? By the way, is there a cause for that? Is there a cause for this appearance of knowingness? Could there be a true knowingness where you could actually help people? Or is there a cause for this feeling of connection with Jesus in your heart? Could there actually be a connection with the divine? What are we doing? We're asking someone in the fourth to talk about cause and effect, to recognize that causes are superior and prior and independent, but also likeness, as above, so below. The second hypothesis, the thing that you're imitating. You might even talk about the third. Hey, if there is a divine that you have all this belief about, could there be an understanding of it? Could there be a kind of communication that happens from the divine that you can participate in, maybe through dreams? By the way, could there be a gap in each moment of time through which you can experience the divine? Fourth to the third. Now, is that about causes? Let me think. Yeah, maybe. You have these beliefs. Do they come from someone? Are they just copying beliefs of beliefs of beliefs, or do they have some understanding? Is there some cause? I mean, you're told you can't understand the mind of God, but does someone have to understand that? So, fourth to third, we have fun. We have fun imagining the kinds of movements you can make through this kind of dialogue. Jesus says, so, our peak experience is therefore secondary to their causes. Certainly that is true, says Jesus. I'll have to dwell on that. You have made me wonder about the effects of peak experiences, and I find that challenging. I suspect, Howie for time. Yeah, over time. I suspect this idea will have far-reaching consequences. However, Socrates, two things. First of all, I'll have to dwell on that later. Why not now? Dwell on it now. Answer now. Tangent, distraction, politician bullshit, right-wing bullshit. I find it challenging. Okay? That might be why he's putting it off. I suspect there will be far-reaching consequences. The consequences of this kind of reflection he might not like. I saw a video today of some establishment Democrat trying to run for office and being asked, do they take AIPAC money, which is money from the Israel lobby that's being used to murder Palestinian people, genocide them, starve them, torture them. Disgusting. The worst things you could do to human beings. And they have a big lobbying in American politics. That person tried to distract from answering that question because of its consequences. They can't get their millions of dollars for sacrificing human life if they answer that question about APAC money. They might not get voted because no fucking person wants them to be in charge. That's sadistic. So if they tell the truth, the consequences is they might not get their cushy job where they can accept millions of dollars from this Israel genociding lobby. Then they might not get to go to the eyes wide shut sick parties on Epstein Island or whatever the current island is, because that hasn't stopped. If anything, these Epstein things have told people they can get away with it. Do more. Still impoverishing people, making them desperate. Well, maybe we should seek justice instead of money. So, I can see the consequences, which will have a challenge to my beliefs or way of being, or money, or profit, or whatever you're benefiting. And a distraction. Next, what does he do after he clocks that there's some sort of implication on his own way of being, doesn't want to answer the question now. What does he do next? However, Socrates, it's when a right-winger or a politician or a propaganda journalist says, hey, listen, I'm not following this. Hey, listen here. They want to change it up. Take charge. You listen to me. No, you answer the question. We need to learn how to ask. We need to learn how to be like Socrates. We need to learn how to ask questions through the dialectic. They'll say, hey, listen. Or, yeah, Jesus saying, however, Socrates, I do believe. Who gives a shit about belief? No one. Savages. Savagely tied to the false beliefs we grew up with, in opposition to understanding that keeps us as savages from sages. From being sages. Savages. Belief. That's the sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice your own beliefs, which will mean everyone sacrifices their equally harmful beliefs, or worse beliefs? For understanding. What will it take? I do believe the fundamental difference between our approaches? What approach? You've been following the same approach. See, he's throwing away everything he's been doing. He's projecting his own bullshit. He's in his beliefs. He's counterattacking. Hasn't been a difference in approaches. It's just been the dialectic. The difference in our approaches rests to a large part on my belief in one God. No, it doesn't. Beliefs have nothing to do with truth. All your beliefs do is indicate the block you have and the level that you've reached. My belief in one God and your belief in the many gods. Who talks in terms of belief? Fourth hypothesis. Conflict people. Why? Because belief has nothing to do with truth. You versus me. Joneses versus Smiths. Black versus white. Nazis versus everyone. Jews versus Palestinians. Beliefs. Reducing the conversation to ignorance. Ignorance, belief, and ignorance, fourth and fifth. Interesting? I think it's interesting.
Oh, fuck.
Fuck.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
Oh my fuck.
Oh, very handsome and or pretty.
Hubba. I just want more testosterone to human body ratio, and I'll finally be satisfied.
Oh my goodness. Is that me, Emma?
Gooners.
You're a gooner.
Gooners.
Gooners.
I'm just asking for some gooner men.
What? Oh, that's the end of this. I shortened the drop. Just asking for some gooner men.
Gooners.
I forgot that I shortened that drop.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
They're secretly turned on by it.
Yes. So, there's a difference between my belief in God and your belief in my belief in one God, your belief in many gods. God alone is and is the Lord of all. Says what? Says your belief? Who cares? Explain it in a dialectic. And no ruler can be Lord. No ruler can be Lord, nor can a ruler be deified. So, we can't reach the divine. Sounds very much like he's left his second hypothesis. If no ruler can be Lord, and no ruler can be deified, that means we are fundamentally disconnected from God or the gods. Notice, Jesus' idea of belief of the one God isn't even his experience. He has no understanding. He's failing in the third. Anyway. No ruler can be Lord, nor can any ruler be deified. Our freedom lies in this principle. God is not to be sought anywhere but in the heart and soul of man. What's that? An empty buzzword or catchphrase? To find him within is the kingdom of God. Let me just find this empty. Drowning oneself in empty phrases breeds chaos. Empty phrases, platitudes. To find him within is the kingdom of God. This difference separates us, and it can be shouted aloud that it is the fourth philosophy of our people. So his identity with his group. We are not Sadducees or Pharisees or Essenes, but we are the fourth people. We are called the Zealots. Now, let it be said that no matter how many similarities we may find between our doctrines, it is this difference that is impassable. I have heard you have a way of making the many appear as a one. Appearance? So Socrates is misrepresenting Socrates' position as the world of appearances. So he's in these four. If he says, you believe this, I believe that, he's putting Socrates in the fourth and not the first. What's that called? Misunderstanding? Interpretation? Projection? If Jesus is talking currently from this state of mind and he's saying, oh, that's you, not me, we've been talking about projection, cry bullies. Now, appear as one, and among the many you have a way of placing them in a hierarchy. However that may be, every hierarchy has its members. It is still a manyness and not a one. I would like to hear from you your reasoning on this matter. Socrates' response, fuck off. No reasoning on. There is no reasoning on what you've said. You've rejected everything we've come to. You're misrepresenting me. You are taking a whole new position, a whole new premise that's false, and you're just saying, what do you say about that? You haven't asked a question. You haven't built reasoning. You are just triggered. You are being a savage, a zombie. This is the nature of human problems. It even surfaces for those who've had enlightenment experiences. Is he going to yes and this as he has been doing? Whoops.
Get the fuck out. I would scoop the moon. I'm joy maxing, okay? And if
I think it's awesome.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Drop the attitude, man.
Sorry.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like cortisol levels are spiking.
For no reason.
I don't mean my cortisol levels to spike.
Jesus is gonna come down, wipe this place out. Who cares?
Hey,
Do a poggers.
the Socrates yes and? No! No! No, you idiot!
You sick fuck.
No. The difference is in our idea of what. So it's not. The difference isn't who believes what and who is the right team and what appearances are what. No. The differences is in our idea of what we mean by the word God. So, what has Socrates done? He hasn't gone along with his bullshit like gish galloping. Conservatives, politicians, scammers, they'll rattle off a whole bunch of shit. He hasn't gone through everyone one by one to address them. He has pulled out the key term. What's that? Division. Just as so the division stage of the dialectic. So we've been talking about the dialectic unfolding as some definition of an idea, some demonstration of it as an example, or its functioning, some reasoning division, dividing it out into its steps of reasoning, or the reflection of the other person, and from how do we get from division to conclusion? Well, remember, conclusion has two stages: analysis. All right, synthesis, sorry. S-Y-N-T-H, synthesis, which is from that reasoned reflection or the steps of reasoning, what is the key idea that has surfaced? Now, what we've been saying is the key idea that we're looking for that motivates our reasoning is as above, so below. Which means the key idea that is, or cause and effect, the more causal idea that has scope over others, or that reflects as above, so below, the theme or principle. For example, let's talk about using the dialectic for a moment in our own exploring of an idea. Let's say you want to understand justice. So we've got our nose in the book. We are learning about justice from Pierre Grimes or Socrates, or Diotima or Parmenides, but small group. We have the idea. We get the texts from the text, the key terms that define justice. What is justice itself in relation to itself? We also, by exploring this dialogue, hey, there's probably been times where justice has been talked about. It definitely has been, because it demonstrates it into that flow state, the state of justice or the state of mind, how justice functions itself that we've just defined in relation to the soul of a philosopher is the flow state. In the zone. So how does it function? Now we might be able to reason about how that functioning, that flow state relates to other things. how does it relate division in this idea or that idea, or breaking down the steps of reasoning to explain why it's a flow state. Our question is, how do we get to our conclusion? We can reflect on all of the different divisions, all of the different examples, or the steps of reasoning, and say, what is the step of reasoning that shows the cause of it functioning in that way, or the cause of it? Why is it a flow state? Or what's the theme or principle that played out in all of these examples? That's how we can, so that's the key idea that we have as our synthesis. We synthesize into a single other that we can then analyze or relate back to our original definition of justice, allowing an improvement or a leveling up of our idea. So that's the idea of synthesis. So a key idea, so key idea or key term that we can analysis that we can therefore relate back to the original idea or other back to self. Now, keep that structure of the dialectic in mind to see how Socrates is responding to Jesus's gish galloping. He just dumped a whole bunch of shit. I think the problem is this. You believe this, and we are the fourth people. We are the zealots, and we believe in this, and you believe in that. We can never come together, and we're going to kill you, and we're going to be the chosen people. The same bullshit that every single belief group, capitalist, we are the billionaires. We worked harder. We pulled ourselves up. You have to suffer. You have to starve. We have to have all the houses. You have to have nothing. All the religious people, we are the Jews. You are the Goyim. We are the Muslims. You are the infidels. We are the Christians. You are the fucking heretics or whatever, sinners. We are the Mormons. You wear the bad underpants and you're not gooning properly.
I'm just asking for some gooner men.
You're not a gooner man.
Debate gooners.
I'm not addressing any of that. I'm pulling out the key idea that's actually the difference. Socrates is still leading the conversation. He's not falling for this bullshit where these fake knowers pretend to be knowers. It's not going to help him. When a patient comes into a doctor's office, that actually the problem is I'm not getting enough medical cocaine. You need to, doctor. See, the problem is you're not prescribing me medical cocaine. If a doctor said, well, actually, yeah, I guess I'm going to argue how much. So here's the argument. You say I should get this amount of medical cocaine, and I said this. This is the problem. The doctor's not going to pick up that premise and work with that. He's going to say, no, I'm telling you the problem. That's not the problem. This is the problem.
I think it's so awesome.
Let's have a longer drop.
It's a total shit show. If you're experiencing a mental health episode, we don't want to have to see that. Freaks. He's so far up his own ass. Please end kink shaming on your show.
Personality maxing requires you to look inward. Personality maxing requires you to look from the ground efforts started with a lot of people that didn't feel like they could do anything about it, but they tried anyways.
Okay. Good. Also, very, very true. We try anyways. No, says Socrates. Half the time. Okay. The difference is in our idea of what is meant by the word God. In truth, we agree. In truth, We agree that there is a highest divine source. We agree that there was a model for creation in the universe. See, highest source, first hypothesis, model, second, and you call it the logos. The intelligibility of the second, the logos. You say the logos, or the word, was in the beginning with God, and it means creation needed the logos as a model for creation. It must be eternal and unchanging, have a vitality, and a mode of being. Each of these unchanging features can be personified. Since they have a mode of being, we say that God the Creator uses the logos as a paradigm or as a model, like you say. But surely if it has a mode of being or existing eternally, it must have a cause, since all that exists must have a cause. The cause of the logos or paradigm we call Chronos. However, by the same reasoning, it itself must have a cause, and we say that is Uranos. Interesting. These are what we call gods, and they can be personified and celebrated. The ultimate cause of all that is, we say, is the one, or the good. Your followers recognize that, and so we are in agreement. Bringing us together from the division that characterizes the functioning of belief. Fighting, savagery, fucking stupidity, that's belief. My team versus your team. Ignorance, the rejection of understanding to cause conflict so you can feel like a big strong person abusing another person. That's the savage nature of human ignorance. Socrates is not doing that. He's bringing us together. He's finding the key term that needs to be defined to bring us together. It's the word God. We've already gone through the reasoning about this. He is just reminding Jesus of what we have already established in the dialogue, that he is rejecting because he's being triggered. Rejecting the new truth, the fifth kind of interpretation. Now, he is saying the paradigm is the logos, but it has a cause. The cause of the logos or paradigm we call Chronos. Now, does that mean that logos is the cause of the logos as a paradigm is Chronos, the second hypothesis, and its cause is Uranos, the first? Or is he saying that even the paradigm has a cause, Chronos, which itself has a cause? Because that's a big deal. If the intelligible pattern of reality is the second hypothesis, the logos within ousia, if this is the paradigmatic cause, the paradigm, if this has a cause, Chronos, and this has a cause, Uranos, that means that there are two levels, the cause of this and the cause of this, which is interesting because that does follow. The cause of the logos as understanding or activity is the second. If the cause of the second is Chronos, and Chronos has a cause, then there would be a kind of model of self, a kind of activity of self, which generates the paradigm, pointing to our puzzle. Is there actually a 10th hypothesis of Parmenides above the first? Maybe the first is the cause of the second, but the paradigm is the 10th. Or maybe the 10th is underneath the first. That's one way of reading the text. So we put that in our question sack. We carry that. The other way of reading that sentence is the unchanging features of the logos, so the inherent parts within Pure's consciousness, can be personified as the gods. That's theology, not literal. Dum-dum.
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting.
Freaks.
Freak. It's a personification of those forces within pure intelligence. Because each of those has their own way of being that is understandable and apprehendable, experienceable, as aspects of that peak experience. We say that God, the creator, uses the logos as the paradigm, or as the model, as you say. By the way, the paradigm is the creator, so it's mind using itself as the paradigm. Second hypothesis, ousia. But surely if it has a mode of being or existence, it must have a cause. Since all that exists must have a cause. The cause of the logos or paradigm we call chronos. Now, the other we could read that as the cause of the paradigm. The cause of this mind being a paradigm, the inherent logos, the cause of the logos as the paradigm, is the inherent chronos, or intelligibility of divine luminosity. But even chronos has a cause, the self. So Uranus could point to the first hypothesis, and chronos could, it's the god of time, chronos, everything in time as the logos within the gods. So chronos as one of the gods is the aspect of mind that has the paradigm for all that exists in time. Chronos, god of time. So one of the gods is Chronos, that includes the paradigm, so likely the highest of all the gods, because it must have the paradigm for all of the other things within even itself. The paradigmatic nature of intelligence, or the inherent logos. So the logos as the highest aspect of mind is Chronos. So the cause of mind being a paradigm, Chronos. Its cause, so the cause of the intelligible paradigmatic nature of intelligence, Uranus. So Uranus could point to the first, and Chronos point to the logos inherent within the second. That's one way of reading it. We don't have to pick teams. We take both. Take both questions in our question set. The other way of reading it is the cause of the paradigm, or the cause of the second hypothesis, is something in self. So Chronos could be the logos of the first. But the model, or ousia, giving that activity that can actively function to create the model or paradigm, Uranus. So Uranus could be the god talking about the knowing of self, and Chronos the functioning. Remember our goal? To know and show the self. To recognize and function through the self most providentially and ideally in this world and in the next. Just like our dream maker, who knows the self and functions Chronos most providentially using the paradigm and logos, second hypothesis, creating a dream, third hypothesis. Or maybe the ultimate model is Uranus, the self, and the ultimate functioning is Chronos, allowing it to function through the model of the second instantly, allowing the self to create 4 dreams a night for 8 billion people for all of time, plus all the animals that dreams. So billions and billions and billions of dreams every night, because its apprehension of the model, second hypothesis, the gods, is instant because it's chronos. It's the cause. And why is it able to apprehend it immediately? Well, if the experience of the model is the peak experience, divine luminosity, its cause must be superior, prior, and independent. So what would make the paradigm, how would you experience the paradigm more superiorly? Well, if this is the overlap of in time and out of time, or sorry, out of time at the top, in time at the bottom, because our physical world is in time. So it's in time, out of time, or the paradigm for all of time. You're experiencing out of time instantly. So maybe the nature of the functioning of the self is different from understanding because it's instant. Just as the model of the self is the paradigm instantly. So the instant knowing of the self immediately out of time without needing any parts, that in a superior, prior, independent way knows all of the logos that can come into existence, Uranos. Its activity, Chronos. The activity creates the paradigm of everything in time. Second hypothesis. I think that reading seems to fit the text better than suggesting that Uranos is just the first hypothesis and Chronos is the intelligibility within the second. It seems to read, the god uses the logos as a paradigm or as a model, but surely if it has a mode of being or existing eternally, it must have a cause. Since all that exists, even the paradigm has a cause. The cause of the logos or paradigm we call Chronos. So that would indicate our theory that we are looking for a way of splitting up Parmenides' first hypothesis into two, which we could loosely call the knowing and showing of the self, or the apprehension of the self, or the knowing of self, grasping as a whole, and its activity. And the closest model we have is our dreams, which is fantastic because you are going to have a dream tonight. So everything we've been learning about Chronos and Uranos, the highest knowing and functioning of the self that even creates the paradigm, because it contains it instantly, allowing it to create the dreams and communicate to you intelligently, giving you something to reflect on these ideas and perfect your own dialectical understanding, because that's how you read your dreams. You get that tonight. And if you've come this far, congratulations. Maybe you will hear these ideas reflected to you in your dreams. Only one way to find out. And maybe that might be why Socrates is saying, hey, for all of the people who can fit on this list of development, the peak of all of the people we've talked about are those who recognize dreams as the highest expression of philosophy. Good news, you're going to get some dreams tonight. I hope you pay attention to them. A little bit of personal, not advice, but hacks, tips and tricks. Have a voice record app on your phone, and as soon as you open your eyes, before you even go take a piss, I don't know, it's a dumb meme. Before you even do that, hit record, start talking. Even if you can't remember the details, just start talking. Even if you can only remember key words, don't worry about getting it in a narrative order. Just start talking. If you can't remember any of the details or words or anything, just talk about how you feel right now. even that might be a reflection of your dream. The more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. And one more hack, there are some AI voice translation tools you can use for free that can save you a bit of time typing up your audio. I'm giving you a little text to reflect on over breakfast. And if you're super lucky with a partner who is also awake to their human quest. Apollo and Aphrodite, love and logos. Have fun. I hope you gain some insights. And I hope you have people in your life that you can reflect on these insights with. And I hope to see you in the next one. I'm a little bit under the weather. Hopefully I'm going to be okay. Hopefully it doesn't get worse. But I'm going to try power through anyway. So thanks for joining me. And I'll see you in the next one.